Well, I spilled coffee on my pants, but you know what's more important than cleaning this coffee? You, and that's why I'm here. Hello, my people. The fear of public speaking. I remember the first time I spoke in university. I had a presentation and my hands were shaking, my legs were shaking, my whole body was shaking. I was like a phone on vibration. But
these weak arms are heavy already.
Yeah.
There's vomit on his sweater.
And this is Jack right here. He's
What's up, guys?
an expert teacher. He's gonna tell us his story, how he dealt with the fear, how he's now a charismatic leader, inspiring hundreds of students around the
greater
part of Cairo.
Yeah, greater part of Cairo. I think that would work.
So we're gonna tackle this issue from different angles. Maybe you can take some insight and apply it to your own situation.
As a kid, you'd never want to really be the first person to walk up into a room. It's like, all right, presentation day. You're like, damn, I don't want to do this. And they're like, who's a volunteer? But back then it's like, okay, it's always best to be the first one to raise your hand and just get it over with. That's how I felt about it. I never wanted to be first, yet being first to go up meant that I could relax and I wouldn't have that anxiety be like, am I next? Am I next? Am I next? You got it out of the way.
I remember the first major event that I had to MC. It was for Red Bull. And I was super scared. And I was talking to everyone to get reassurance. Like, what do you think? Do I look good? Am I going to do well? Yeah, you can do it. And I'm trying to buff myself up before going up on stage. And when I went on stage, I was super scared. But then during breaks, I would go down and speak to people just to get some feedback, especially from my friends. And surprisingly, they didn't realize that I was scared. I thought I looked scared, but I didn't. And I didn't understand back then what that was, but later I found out that there's studies done on this, and it's actually called the illusion of transparency. And the idea is you don't look as anxious as you think you look. We believe our internal state is transparent, but that's actually not true. It's an illusion. So you might be scared inside, but people cannot see that you're scared. And they actually repeated this study with 3 groups. One that knew about the illusion of transparency. One which was given regular advice, like believe in yourself, you can do it, all that, generic crap. And then the third group, they told them nothing. And they found that the group with the least anxiety was the one that knew about the illusion of transparency. So the fact that our viewers now know about this, your fear is now automatically lowered. Congratulations.
At least.
You owe us.
I remember in the school that I teach at, we have student council elections. And each member that's running for high board has to provide or present the speech to the entire school board or school body, right? And a lot of the kids were like, we can't do this, blah, blah, blah. I didn't know about this illusion of transparency thing until literally about 10 minutes ago. And I was telling them at the time, I was like, you know what? You need to have like this confidence. Even if you don't feel confident, you need to have it. So what do? What I did, what someone told me way back in the day was like, have like something that inspires you or something that you want to be like, somebody that exudes confidence, just bleeds it off, and have like some sort of physical cue to kind of recall that and bring it back. So like every time you do this physical cue, you start remembering that and you yourself started supposedly becoming more confident. And it helped. A lot of the students that went up on stage, they went up there, they killed it. It was amazing. And they're like, oh my God, I was so scared. Did you notice? Not at all. Right. And this is where like, because I had told them about this, I noticed that some kids were like, constantly tapping on their knee. Some kids were like constantly snapping. Others were like scratching their face or something. And I realized that this was their cue that they had put in their mind to like feel more confident or courageous in what they were trying to do. So yeah, the illusion of transparency thing, it's real, but you can overcome it. It's not something that should paralyze you into non-action.
Exactly. And you break the cycle by knowing about this illusion.
Yeah.
Because normally you would think, I'm scared. Oh my God, they could see that I'm scared. Now I'm actually scared that they see I'm scared. And then it exacerbates the fear. But once you know they can't see it, then you can manage it a bit. Actually, when it goes out of hand, that's when, they might see it. Like after it's magnified tenfold, hundredfold.
Oh, man.
But if you realize that, just some fear or anxiety, I mean, then no one can see that. Then you're all good.
Unless, of course, your fear and anxiety is like shown in giant sweat rings, or like you're physically sweating bullets or something. That's when people can see it. So you need to really calm down a bit before that even.
Use deodorant.
That too. Old Spice.
Yes.
No, this is not an ad. Anyway.
I think intentions are really important. Why are you going in there?
Yeah, what is the purpose of what you're doing, right?
Yeah. Do you want to impress people? Is that why you want to give a speech? What do you think?
When it comes to like the concept of performing versus trying to explain something or provide some sort of like knowledge point for whoever you're talking to.
Some value.
Yeah, value. That's the perfect way to put it. It really depends on your audience, right? For example, if you're going in for entertainment purposes, you're an actor of any form, shape, or whatever. Like it could be voiceover, it could be physical acting. That right there, whatever you're going to do is geared towards performance. So you have this set target in mind. Whatever you do with your vocal cords, whatever you're reading as a script, has to be done in a certain way. You don't care how it's received on the other end in terms of like communication wise. You care about how they see this voice being portrayed or this character being portrayed. You're trying to physically put yourself in another person's shoes, right? This is the idea of performance, at least in my mind, right? Are you doing that in a school setting? Are you doing that in a meeting setting, like in a meeting room? Of course not, right? You're trying to give information, right? You are a source of knowledge and you need to be like that. So communication-wise, like knowing the difference and how to really go about it, this is super important. As a school teacher, this is pretty much an everyday thing.
Yeah.
Like walking into a room, you are the person that is responsible for telling these kids or explaining to them whatever subject you're teaching. You need to be able to communicate properly with them. You can't be like in some cases you could, like be an actor in some cases. Some subjects you can act it out, you can give a story, you can make it a little bit simpler by weaving things together in terms of something that's interesting to make a boring subject more entrancing for the kids.
Yes. For me, it's the difference between impressing and serving. Am I going in there to impress or to serve? If you want to impress, you'll ask, what if they think I look stupid, unqualified, not well dressed, etc., etc. Fill in the blanks with your worries and concerns.
I mean, not gonna lie, like when it comes to that, you kind of have that in the back of your mind as well as a teacher. Like the moment you turn around, it's like, did I sit on something downstairs? And then you hear like a chuckle in the back. It's like, oh God, did I do something? And you start sweating. You slowly turn around. It's like, why are you laughing? Nothing. Okay. And you turn around again. It's like, what is going on? Right? There's always that little nagging feeling in the back that, the kids are laughing at you. It could be something they're talking about, but let's face it, depending on, how you present yourself, it would never be you.
Yes. And that's why you need to monitor your internal dialogue. And if you find yourself asking that question, replace it with another question, which is, what if I can inspire, inform, educate, entertain?
Yeah.
And in this case, you're teaching them something. So you're adding value to them, not just in what you teach, but also in their character, because the way you carry yourself and the way you manage the classroom, just your persona, your aura, has educational value in itself.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, everyone has mistakes, right? You spill a cup of coffee on yourself. Where'd you spill it? On the crotch of your pants. So,
yeah.
Like it's whatever. It happens. Like you can't really do anything about it. You're gonna go home and you can't really go home at work, right? So you're gonna.
But you can draw attention to it. So
exactly.
You call out the big elephant in the room, so it doesn't feel awkward anymore.
Exactly.
You could say, well, I spilled coffee on my pants, but you know what's more important than cleaning this coffee? You, and that's why I'm here.
That's one way to diffuse a situation.
Yeah,
literally.
Exactly.
As long as you manage whatever's happening properly, nothing would ever be problematic. Even if it's like a mistake that you make, just make it a joke or something. This is how I do things, right? Just lightening the mood. It's like, yeah, I did this. So what? Like recently, actually, orientation at the beginning of this year, I had worn a shirt and this pair of purple pants that I really, really like. And this shirt had on the front of it everything I say will be on the exam. And it became like something that I was very well known for, like these shirts at school that just say random things, and kids are like, "What the hell?" So I completely forgot that this exact same outfit was the picture that I used in my presentation to introduce myself. So when I flipped the slide, this kid literally was like, "Oh my god, it's the same outfit!" And everyone started laughing. I turned around, I was like, "Hey, look at that! It is." You know what that means? It's true. So and everybody just stopped and like, "Oh shit." Like, so it diffused it to the point where they're like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna have to actually focus in this class."
Some tips for shifting your orientation from performance to communication is consider your presentation or your lesson a gift.
Yeah.
You're giving them value. And also knowing your audience. So in this case, if you're teaching students, you know their temperament, you know if they like to watch videos more, you know if they're into, let's say, Disney, so you maybe contextualize some learning objectives into a story that involves Disney characters. I mean, you know how it works. Yeah. So you know your audience, and you tailor your presentation, or in your case, your lesson, to the audience. So making it about them, shifting your focus. It's not on me, it's on the audience, and seeing what you offer as a gift. Then you can be more about communication rather than performance, because performing is really stressful.
Oh yeah. I know a lot of people actually that like to do this, where they ask questions to poke holes in another person's knowledge.
Okay, so you're talking about the expert dilemma, where people fear that people in the audience could be experts and they know more than they do as speakers.
Yes.
And that would make them feel worried. So what do I have to offer? Like, I want to add value, as you said. I want to communicate and serve, but there's nothing I could do. I'm a poor man and little knowledge, and look at all these people. They know much more than me. So that's what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, as it is, I wouldn't say anybody is considered a quote-unquote expert, right? Because there's always room to grow. There's things that are always changing in your field. This is most commonly seen in, let's say, technology and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Technology is always changing. You could be an expert one day and suddenly a new technology comes out you would know nothing about. Mm-hmm. So you're no longer, you're an expert in, older tech. What about the new stuff? Same as with teaching curriculums and stuff like that. If you shift from different grade levels, a lot of students have this this kind of image in their head where we are literally the best person to talk to when it comes to a particular topic. Right now, I teach economics and accounting, and a lot of students come up to me recently. Actually, they start asking me, should they invest in Bitcoin, right, or any of those cryptocurrencies? And I told them straight up, look, I know a lot of things about the stock market, how to invest and all that stuff, but when it comes to cryptocurrency, I am very poorly versed, so I don't want to give you wrong information that would, end up causing you to invest in something and you lose all your money. So I'm out there, yes, I know something, but I'm also actively telling them that there's gaps in my own knowledge. And I feel like admitting that you have these gaps is more powerful than pretending you know everything.
In my case, I think of it as watching a movie. Sometimes I watch a movie twice, 3 times, 4 times. Now, I am an expert on this movie. I know the story, the plot, I know what's going to happen, yet I watch the same movie again. Why do I keep going back to the same movie despite being an expert on it? It's because the way the story is told. So every time I watch it, it takes me through an emotional roller coaster. I laugh at the same jokes. I connect with the characters because it's not just what they say or the information offered, it's how they say it. So similarly, when we match this analogy to the context of public speaking, now I'm speaking to experts and they know my topic. They know the ins and outs of everything that I'm going to say. But what makes you think that this would render them bored? That this would make them not interested in what you have to say?
Yeah.
The same reason I watch a movie twice is the same reason why these experts would want to listen to you despite knowing what you're already going to say. Because it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. If you can make how you say your speech as interesting as a movie, so your vocal variety, your body language, and your personal story, which makes the information that they already know seen from a new perspective, So all this makes your presentation fresh, even if the experts know what you're going to talk about.
That's true. I mean,
Yes, you add flavor to what they
Yeah.
already know. So don't forget that you still have value to add, even if you're going to say something that all the people know in the audience.
when it comes to that idea as well, like, let's face it, sometimes those people, let's say you might have encountered a situation that they've never encountered, right? And then it's part of your own personal experience. They have now gained at least something from you because of your own experience. There's always something new, no matter what. I've seen people that teach for like 15 years or something, and they come up and they're like, I've never seen so-and-so or like this kind of behavior from this. I'm like, really? Like, you've been teaching for like 15 years, you've never seen that? Like, no. And they get really flustered because they're thinking to themselves, how am I going to deal with this? Because they've never seen it before. Well, this is a normal occurrence in my class, so here's what happens. And I tell them. They look at me and I'm like, really? It's normal? Well, to me it is, because I kind of live it. This is where that generational gap thing comes in. But we can't use generational gaps as an excuse to really put us in that mode where like we fear telling somebody something because they look like they know more. I mean, let's face it, Warren Buffett is always out there giving tons of people knowledge about how to invest in stocks, but he's also constantly learning.
Yes.
Right? It's a process. You can't be an expert and you can't say that you're not learning anymore. Right? If you stop learning, then you're no longer an expert. You have to keep up to date with all the news, all the new changes to whatever it is. And this is where we can learn from the younger generation.
So the takeaway from this is that it's not just the information, but how you contextualize this information and how you say it. That's something unique to you.
This is something that I encounter a lot, especially with kids, because like, oh, we already know this stuff. It's social studies, it's history, it's this or whatever. And they just feel so lazy. But if you introduce a new aspect or you convey this information in a very new or different way, you're just going to spike their interest. You know, and this is how you get them. This is your hook.
Another issue is being attached to the outcome. Some people stay up at night wondering all the what ifs in the world. You know, what if the nuclear reactor 12 miles from my house explodes and it burns out my Nintendo collection that I've been saving up for 12 years.
Watch Chernobyl, that's what happens.
What if my girlfriend is abducted by aliens and I never see her again?
Take me too, please.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
like-
if, what if, what if, what if, what if? And most of these what ifs end up never happening. And I find that being attached to the outcome, worrying about how things are going to turn out, makes the outcome worse. Worrying about the outcome attracts negative outcomes.
That is true. Do you remember this book that was very, very popular about like 10 years ago called The Secret?
Yes.
The popular idea in this book is that whatever you want and you think hard enough about it and you want it that badly, it'll eventually come to you. Power of positivity, as they called it, right? It wasn't so much as power of positivity as much as it was like changing your perspective on the way you see things. It's not always negative. Yes, there are negatives, but there are always things like silver lining to every negative thing that happens to you, right? If you only focus on those terrible things, then your life will always be negative because you've conditioned yourself to see that. It's the idea with results as well. If you're afraid, like you were saying, to get results that are bad, you're going to paralyze yourself before even starting. The thing that really stands out in that case is like the process. The process is what's really important in this case. So trying to do the right thing or doing something because you know that it's correct or you know that this is what you should be doing and not caring about the outcome should be the way that a lot of people think, but that's not, unfortunately, that's not the way a lot of people think.
Yes. And for the skeptics out there who might say this attraction law, mumbo jumbo, woo-woo stuff, you don't have to believe in the law of attraction because logically, if you're worried about something, it clouds your mind. And when your mind is clouded, this is like a filter that prevents good ideas from coming through. So you're not as creative as when you're relaxed and your mind is clear. So you're actually less effective in troubleshooting and navigating the obstacles in your life. And if you're not in a state of flow and fully involved in what you're doing, if you're worried about the outcome, that's going to lower your standards. The way you're doing things is going to lower your performance, and that's going to result in a worse outcome. Like, let's say you're playing football with your friends. Now, if you're just playing with your friends and it's a low stakes game and you're having fun, it could be the best game of your life. You could do things that you've never imagined doing. But suddenly when the spotlights are on you and you have to win the cup and you start thinking about all people looking at you and, oh my God, am I going to make it? Am I not going to make it? And you start worrying, you're going to start missing shots.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. Do you remember there was randomly like a match was on about a week ago or something, and penalty shots. I feel like penalty shots would apply in this case because like the moment it happens, you're chosen, or like, I don't know exactly how it works because I'm not well versed in the sport, but whoever takes the shot, they have all of this like ideas in their mind. They're like, okay, what happens if I miss? My team's gonna hate me for at least 20 minutes. And then this dude, like literally in this match, I just look up. He takes a kick for the penalty, like he kicks it. He kicks the ball completely to the side of the goal. Not even on point.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the goalpost is huge, right? This guy just kicks it all the way to the left.
Yes. And you hear people, by the way, saying, what happened? In practice, I got 20 shots in a row perfectly.
Yeah.
So why would this happen in this situation? It's because of the spotlights, and suddenly my mind gets busy and I start asking what if.
Yeah.
And I don't do the thing that I normally do. Under normal circumstances, I get 20, 40 in a row, no problem.
Because when it comes down to it, you condition yourself with all of these things, like regardless of whatever you're doing, whether it's a sport or, public speaking or whatever, you condition your mind. Your mind is a muscle. Well, no, it's just a bunch of gray matter, right? But the more you use it, the more active it becomes.
It's also malleable, and you build neural paths whenever you take on something new.
Exactly. So like there's always room to grow. There's that very, very popular example where a teacher walks in, or like anybody walks into a business or whatever, and like they start naming off all these achievements, and suddenly they say something wrong, and everyone hyper focuses on that wrong thing, right? Everyone will be like, oh, you did this wrong, because everybody anywhere is more inclined to point out mistakes and failures than they are to actually praise somebody for good deeds. And you can have like 10, 15 good deeds and then one mistake, and everyone constantly reminds you of this mistake. So this is where you start conditioning your own internal monologue and saying, okay, I can't make mistakes because so-and-so or like 10 different people are going to say I made a mistake. You got to get your head out of the gutter like that. You can't be focused on that.
I like to assume that the audience tolerates imperfections.
Supposedly, right? But when it comes to them, I can guarantee that they've had this exact same experience. Like each one of us has had an experience like this, 100%. Like I would not expect anybody's life to be complete without one of those types of situations. You know, it's a growing experience. It's a learning experience. You grow from it, you learn from it, and you move on. You shouldn't let it cloud your entire life.
Yes, not being attached to the outcome actually results in better outcomes.
Which is, it seems like an oxymoron, but it's not.
Yes, because now you have 100% of your mental effort dedicated towards the task that you're doing instead of imagining situations. Yeah. Like,
that's why a lot of people's work is half-assed, right? They're, oh my God, I got to meet this deadline. Oh my God, I got to do this. Oh my God, I have to meet the expectations of so-and-so. Will they like my art? Will they like whatever? But when you focus on that, you're not going to be able to produce the best work and best quality of anything, because part of your brain is focusing on mistakes. And that means you're going to make a mistake.
Sometimes it helps to realize that negative experiences are not actually negative. It's your perspective that makes them so.
Exactly.
Because what you call a negative experience is insight for you. It's something that helps you grow. What makes something truly good or bad is what you do with it.
Yeah.
So things happen. They're not good or bad. They're neutral. What do you do with it? How do you react? So it's your reaction that determines whether an experience is positive or negative. Even if the experience is having tomatoes thrown at you in a presentation. Okay, so if you determine your reaction to that, like what's your response to that, that's what's gonna make the experience positive or negative. For me, I'm gonna say that's a hilarious story. I can share it in my next presentation. I got tomatoes thrown at me. Wow.
Always, like, I do the same thing. Like, those negative things that happen, depending on the situation, depending on whatever story it is, I use it as a point to illustrate something that you shouldn't do, or like use it as like a story with a moral. You know, like there's always something good that can be got from negative stuff or things that from you see.
From stuff.
Exactly, from stuff. Like,
and then if you react this way to it, then it's not negative.
Yeah.
For you,
it's no longer negative.
Positive experience because you channeled it towards your growth.
Exactly. Like, this is why we're saying, like, it's always a mindset thing. Like, whatever you tell yourself, whatever you perceive, and whatever you believe, this is how you manifest everything in front of you. Like, the brain is a very powerful piece of gray matter.
You love gray matter.
I do. Like, this thing right here. Like, this is extremely powerful. It can manifest so many things. And it's just like, why? Why do you choose to manifest those types of things? Right? When you think about it, the world is neutral. Everything is neutral. Except you. You are the conduit that actually determines whether or not this neutrality stays, like, becomes positive or becomes negative.
Yes. NATO, not attached to outcome. That's a good acronym.
There you go. We have the idea of facilitation and presentation. Right? What are we really doing in this case?
Yes. So if you are speaking and people are listening, then that's presentation. That's what you have in a typical TED Talk. But if you're in a more flexible context that doesn't put these constraints on you that you just have to speak, you could actually bring the audience's experiences to bear on your topic. So you could elicit opinions from people. You could have group work, pair work, different interaction patterns that doesn't make the experience centered on you as a speaker, but more participant centered. So it's more similar to a workshop, let's say. So you design these activities, use icebreakers, energizers, and you throw questions around, and all people engage with these questions, and you could even have them hang answers on the wall, like these little cute activities. But the point is, you don't become the sole source of information, but everyone in the room can add value, and it becomes a much more valuable experience this way. And you find that even as an expert, and these people coming to learn from you could actually teach you something. Yeah. Because it's like living a dozen lives.
True.
Yes, all these experiences, all these people have lived for a long time and they share their experiences. You don't have their experiences. Remember when we talked about experts in the audience?
Yeah.
Now, being an expert speaker, you could still learn from non-experts. It's the other way around as well.
Exactly. I mean, when it comes to presentation and facilitating, I feel like this would be the culmination of literally everything we had discussed previously, right? Overcoming your fear, the idea of like not wanting to fail and like fixating solely on the outcome rather than the process, right? With this idea with facilitating, we want to get through to the point where they should not be afraid to ask questions, and the person providing the workshop should not be afraid to not look like an expert.
Yes.
Right? At that point where you're sharing experiences with everybody and everyone is building upon each other's knowledge, this should be used as a catalyst to realize that there's so much more for you to learn, and this is like just breaks the shell entirely, and like this helps you grow even more than you would think you're able to. And some people, like, they don't believe they can grow. They don't believe in growth. Well, attend one of these types of things and you will grow.
Yes. That's why famous author Neil Postman, he's an education critic, and he said that he's tired of seeing teachers talk. It's like the purpose of their body is to carry their head to lessons and meetings, right? So he had a wonderful recommendation. He said, make the science teachers teach math, and the math teachers teach science, and the English teachers teach something totally different. And that way, because of their ignorance, they would listen more Because if you get a teacher who knows too much about the subject, who loves his subject too much, then that's the recipe for disaster, because then this teacher is going to keep talking, right? Put the students to sleep. You want to get someone who doesn't know the subject. Now, that's really interesting.
That would actually be a very fun experiment. I would actually like to suggest that to the school, but like, I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But that would be really interesting.
It makes you think, though. Like, get someone who doesn't know the subject to facilitate a session about the subject.
Yeah.
Now, this kind of session would involve the participants much more than the facilitator.
Yeah.
You're not the king of the classroom or the king of the room anymore. You're just a guide.
When we look at student-centered, a lot of our like staff members, not going to name names, but when they talk about student-centered, they kind of make it so there's more activities. Yes, this kind of is branching into that idea of student-centered. But if the students are not actively asking questions to enhance their learning, we can't really say it's student-centered, right?
So they have to lead the process in some way.
Exactly. So this is where we're moving more away from being teachers and being facilitators. And I constantly tell this to new staff members as much as possible. Like when we're designing lessons and everything like that, I tell them, look, try and facilitate learning rather than teach learning. Because you can teach them how to do an activity and you can facilitate an activity. Two completely different things, right? Now, funny thing. So I was reading on Facebook a few days ago and this random post pops up on my feed and I'm like, where the hell is this from? And it's from AUC. One of these fun little AUC groups I'm part of, right? So I find this kid discussing something about a particular subject. Obviously I'm not going to name the subject. This person asked for, what everyone always asks for, easy A, very light workload. Now, one person in the comments said something about this teacher is very difficult, but you learn. And then another kid was like, what? No, that person doesn't help you at all, blah, blah. He's teaching the quote unquote old school method where you as a student self-learn 60% of the course and 40% is on the teacher. I was thinking to myself, like, wait a minute. Isn't this what we're trying to move towards in schools? Like where this post or this person, his post made me laugh so hard. And at the same time, it made me question everything. And I was like, oh my God, if this is the kind of student that I'm graduating and I'm helping graduate, what have I been doing? Like where did the entire process go wrong for someone to say that's the old school method and this person is basically wanting to be handheld? At that point, it tells me one of two things. Either this person was taught in an Egyptian language school where everything is memorized, or he's an IG student, which is also all memorized, right? So that's the only two outcomes. Like you're teaching this kid to memorize everything, and that's where the teacher is not a facilitator, but a presenter. And in the more, quote unquote, international schools, we're trying to move towards facilitating. So I realized later on, like after I laughed about it, and I asked my friends about it, I was like, yo, what the hell is this, right? They told me like, look, maybe it's because they were a different school system, they're unused to it or stuff like that. I mean, like AUC has all walks of life, right?
But it's not just about learning things on your own, because I could tell you, here are some mathematical equations. I think you should learn this. Now learn this on your own. It's still prescriptive in a way because I'm telling you what to learn. I'm not giving you a chance to ask questions. So giving the students a sense of agency is not just about telling them to learn on their own, but giving them a choice in what to learn and helping them ask questions so that when they learn on their own, they feel that this is something they want to do, that it's relevant to their life. So it's not just about learning on my own, but it's about being invested in what I want to learn as a prerequisite, then learning on my own. If I tell you, here's the curriculum, you're not interested in this, it's not remotely related to your life, now learn it on your own, that doesn't make it student-centered, does it? So what has inspired you to push through and gain all these experiences and keep moving forward instead of throwing in the towel and saying, why even bother? I mean, What made you
Honestly,
take
man,
that step?
I've wanted to throw in the towel so many times. It's not even funny, right? It even start like as crazy as it may seem. I wanted to drop out of university at one point.
Whoa.
Yeah, like there was a time where I was a computer science major. It was so difficult. It was so different than what I had thought the major was like. And I was getting really poor grades, and my parents were like coming down on me. They're like, "What the hell is wrong with you? Why are you getting poor grades? Just ask your sister for help, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, even if I asked other people for help, my decision would still be my own. And no amount of help would deter me from this. So eventually, there was a compromise, of course, shift over to a different major. So at one point, I was very resistant to that because I felt like I'd be disappointing not only myself, but others because I would leave engineering. But, apparently this is a very common occurrence. But eventually when I transferred out, like what was really inspiring, there was a professor at this time that helped me out. And this guy was incredible, right? He was about 32 at the time, maybe 34. And his class, well, his was student-centered, where we didn't talk about anything in class. Literally nothing. And he said, if you don't want to be here, leave. Class was always like 5-10 kids. 5 to 10 maximum.
Okay.
And the capacity at the time, the AUC was like 30 kids. Whoa. So the professor was like, if you don't want to be in the classroom, as long as you do your assignments, you're good. Everyone's like, what, really? He's like, yeah. Half the class left. Like literally half of them left. And I stayed there because I was like, honestly, man, if I left that classroom, I would literally be sleeping or something. And this professor seemed like he was an interesting person. So I started talking with him because he noticed that I was reading at the time the biography of Malcolm X. And he's like, that's a very good book to read, blah, 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 and all this stuff. Discusses feats of courage and perseverance and stuff. And that's when he said, there's a story that I want to tell you. And he told us his story of when he had graduated high school way back at 18. And he said, I didn't want to go to university. Right? He came from a background that was, pretty well off. And he had the opportunity to go to university, but he didn't do it. So instead he got jobs, odd jobs here, working at bars, delivering stuff, whatever. And he basically said he didn't go to university until he was 28. Whoa. He was not a freshman in university until 28. And I was like, what the hell did you do for 10 years? He's like, I did everything. I traveled, I worked as a bartender, which was really bad because he became an alcoholic for a couple of years. And I was like, how the hell did you overcome that? And he's like, meditation. Damn. So he had all these different experiences. And he told me that no matter what you do in life, if you don't want to do it, it's not going to stick. Even if you finish whatever it is. Let's say it's a course, university diploma. Do you want it? No. So not everything that you learn there is going to stick here. Right? And he said, I did not choose to dedicate my time to this or the money until I wanted to do it myself. So when he went to university from 28, he didn't stop until he was like 32, right? He said that he somehow managed to finish undergrad in 2.5, 3 years instead of the 4. And he did a master's in that time, and he was working on his PhD, all within the span of, what is this, another 6 years or so. And I'm sitting there in that class, I'm like, what the hell? And this guy, he was young, right? His name was super inspirational guy. His name was Craig, right? Craig Wisher. This guy was incredible, right? He helped me to become more invested in my learning at the time in university. And that helped me be more interested in it and more active in everything. So I still remember a lot of things from that time. Before that, CS and computer science, hell no, I don't remember anything. But the moment I talked to him and started really going down that path, it started to stick more. And I started to realize no matter what you do in life, if you choose to do it, it will stick and it will be more fulfilling and more fruitful for you. Mm-hmm. But if we choose a path of resistance to conform with society, conform with families, whatever, we're not going to have the same fulfillment or outcome as we would if we had chosen it. And this is a massive dilemma for a lot of people. It's very difficult for people to say that they can have freedom of choice because, let's face it, here we don't really have that idea of freedom of choice. A lot of it is dictated by how society would perceive us. Doctors, engineers, these are the highest numbers of graduates from universities simply because of families, simply because of how society sees us or sees them. What am I going to do with as an artist? How am I going to make money? Right? Society has told us otherwise, that you cannot be those applied arts style careers. You can't be some philosopher or something. You have to be an engineer or a doctor. And this is why a lot of people just end up going to that path, grinding it out with really crappy grades. And at the end of the day, they end up working with the family because they're not inspired to do something on their own. You know, it's really disappointing to me. And it's very heartbreaking to see that, because a lot of my students now are going through the same process. And it's really upsetting that these people, these students and these kids that I know, their parents are deadlocking them into something they don't want to do. You know, and it's like, you either do this or you don't go to school. How is that an option? Like, what is that?
It's an ultimatum.
Yeah. Like,
yes.
Makes
And
no sense.
in your case, your symbol of inspiration was your college professor.
One of them, yeah.
Yes.
You
In my case, it was from the fictional world.
know.
A few people know this, but I actually graduated from pharmacy. I have a bachelor's in pharmacy. So I'm officially a pharmacist on paper, but in real life, I know nothing. I know if you guys have a headache, you could pop a Panadol. That's all I know. But don't ask me more than that. So pharmacy is 5 years. I spent seven years in pharmacy because I failed subjects. Not because I'm dumb, but I just lacked interest. Sometimes I didn't even show up to exams. And I would see the professor for the first time on the exam date. I'd be like, oh, so this is the guy teaching this subject. Hello there.
Oh, man.
Yes, and it's because I didn't have a purpose.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and if you go through education without a purpose, then it's just jumping through hoops, trying to please people around you and not be an outcast in society. And there's these threats.
Oh, man.
You know, not explicit threats, but
Yeah, but it's like threats to you.
Your future will look like this if you don't go through
that's it. That's
if you don't get this certificate, this is what would happen to you. No girl will want to marry you. You wouldn't have money to do anything.
You're gonna become Oscar the Grouch living in a garbage can, or you might even be the Cookie Monster addicted to cookies. And just so you know, having a goal does not mean I want to graduate. That is not a goal.
But towards what end? Why do you want to graduate?
Exactly.
And, why are you studying this subject? Who do you want to be?
Yeah.
Yes.
You need solid goals. All right,
Yes.
guys? Remember that.
So towards the end of graduation, I was considering my options. I knew that this was a field I didn't want to work in. So I was thinking, what's my plan B? How can I rescue myself? Because I don't want to wake up every morning and press snooze before going to work.
Yeah. Ugh.
So I thought, all right, I like languages. I like the English language. And I like engaging people and helping others. So why not combine together? So one-on-one together, I guess English teaching, that's what I'm gonna do. So I wanted to get certified as a teacher. Of course, that decision was initially met with opposition. It was opposition in the form of advice, like people concerned for me. Like there were no ultimatums or don't do this or we'll disown you or that kind of thing. Like my parents stood behind my decision in the end, and I really appreciate the support. But the advice, like if you decide to be a teacher, what teacher? You're a doctor, you want to lose your prestige, you want to make less money, and you got these relatives telling you if you go ask for a girl's hand in marriage, what are you going to tell her dad? I'm a teacher? They're going to look down on you, you know?
Yeah, that stigma is just like, it paralyzes a lot of people into inaction and just compliance.
Yes. And this is in terms of your career, but also in everything. Your mindset, your beliefs, all that is you're expected to conform to what everyone else thinks you should be, how everyone else is doing things. And when you decide to be different or stray away from the norm, you're met with opposition. And as a young person, when you're faced with all this pressure, sometimes you could doubt yourself and say, okay, everyone is saying that there's something wrong with what I want to do, right? So maybe actually conforming is the right way.
Yeah, that's the problem though. Like when you become a conformist, you lose all sight of goals, all sight of what you want to be. It just kind of kills the inner you, and you become a shell that literally clicks on snooze every morning before you go to work.
Yes, and you just go to work to make ends meet and put food on the table and make your wife happy.
It's a very sad existence, extremely depressing existence.
It's ridiculous. So what saved me from this future was an anime, believe it or not. It's called Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, the Japanese
Here's the
name.
heavens!
Yes, and in the first episode, we see a village living underground, and they're taught that the surface doesn't exist. And this is a belief passed down from their ancestors. So telling them that the surface does exist is blasphemy. Right? Just like in our society today, if you say God doesn't exist, what?
Everybody, exactly.
Kill him. So
It's
that's
like, what?
blasphemy, right? So they're taught that the surface doesn't exist. And some people's role was to dig downwards so they could expand the village to accommodate the increasing population. So there was one kid with a drill, and he was taken aside by one of the rebellious delinquents in the village. Now this guy was called Kamina. And Kamina told Simone, the digger, listen, I know that your job is to dig downwards. That's what you've been told. But the surface exists. I know that the surface exists. And your drill is not meant to dig down. It's meant to dig up.
Exactly.
Now, the village chief didn't like what he heard. So he locked them up. And this was a frequent occurrence. Like he would say, the surface exists. What? You're talking about our ancestors again? You're blaspheming? Lock this guy up. And they would deprive them of food and so on. But in the end of the episode, they managed to pierce through the surface. And the episodes after that take us through a journey where these characters conquer all these beliefs inculcated in them. Being raised in a village, being told that the surface doesn't exist and taught to do things a certain way, they become the total opposite. Just because they dared to go against the norm, go against the common belief, go against their tribe, against their village. This made me think, okay, what about my tribe? What about my village? They all say these things.
Yeah.
And I have a drill. That drill is my passion. That drill is my soul. Why am I pointing the drill where they're telling me? I'm not gonna drill down. I believe that the surface exists for me too. And that surface for me was doing what I believed was right for me, which is using my passion, teaching, engaging with people, language. I didn't like chemicals. I didn't like standing in laboratories. I didn't like selling diapers. I didn't like any of this stuff. You know? I wanted to do me, right? So this anime and this story encouraged me to do what I wanted to do in life. And I still carry this philosophy forward with me. I always remember that quote, your drill is the drill that will
pierce the heavens.
Pierce the heavens, exactly. And symbols of inspiration. College professor, anime character, and in your case, it could be maybe a motivational speaker or a character in a novel. It could be fictional, non-fictional, but stories, narratives, they carry morals within them, or you could make your own meanings out of them and use these meanings to fuel your purpose and your endeavors in life. These meanings could help you move forward when times get rough. These meanings that you extract from stories, whether fictional or non-fictional, could inspire you to become a greater version of yourself, could unlock possibilities. There you have it, folks. The causes of public speaking anxiety, the fear, how to deal with it, how we've dealt with it. And we're still learning every day, and we hope that you join us on this learning journey. And maybe perhaps you could share some of your stories in the comments and let us know if you find parallels with what we said, if you've been through maybe the same situations that we faced. We'd love to hear from you. And remember that 1,000 steps start with one step.
Always.
Yes, so just take action. Keep moving forward and make mistakes. Embrace mistakes. Be a mistake machine because these mistakes are the stepping stones to where you want to be.
Find your drill. Pierce the heavens.
See you in the next episode.
Peace.